team with a really good coach in Quinn Snyder.
Yeah, so I have the Jazz at just over that with 49 wins. By the way, I don't think I mentioned my win-loss prediction for the Thunder, which I have them at 47. So I have them finishing third in the division. I have the Jazz finishing second in the division with 49 wins. And I think now that lets everyone know who I believe will be the winner of this division, which we will touch on in a few minutes. But yeah, the Jazz, I mean, they have a very solid roster, and I think that's the best way to describe them, is that they're very solid. I mean, obviously a lot is going to depend on Donovan Mitchell and his further development with this team, whether Rudy Gobert could stay healthy, and whether Dante Exum could stay on the court as well, and how he develops as a point guard. There's a lot of people who, I read a couple articles already that making predictions that Dante Exum might be a breakout player, not only on this team, but one of the better breakout players in this league. So if that becomes true, and if that becomes the case, Utah will be a very dangerous team, and they could probably win even 52, 53 games. We will see about that. Who do you have as the breakout player?
This was another team that was pretty tough to find a player. I mean, obviously they drafted Grayson Allen, and he might be able to contribute a little bit, but I'm going to say Royce O'Neal just because we saw him play last year. We saw that he's an NBA player. He played in spurts. He averaged 5 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 35% shooting from the three. I think he can improve a little bit in this area. Now, when it comes to breakout player, I don't believe he's going to be even a starter on this team. But I do believe he's going to be one who's going to contribute more than he did last year. Unfortunately, I don't believe the Jazz have any players who are really going to be out there to break out and become stars. They had that in Donovan Mitchell last year, and I think they should be happy for having what he did.
Yeah, I think, again, like I just mentioned, there's a lot of people arguing that that player might be Dante Exum. Unfortunately, his problem has been staying on the court, and that very well might continue being the problem for this team. So we'll see. I mean, I think with some of these players like Raul Neto, Royce O'Neal, Tony Bradley, it's really going to depend on whether they get any minutes or not. I mean, these are all still young players who all have the potential to be decent players in the league, and it's really going to depend on how much playing time they get on this team. So I won't disagree with your pick quite yet. We'll see how the season develops and how much playing time they get.
I think last year Dante Exum showed us he's a great defender. He's really good when it comes to that. I still am waiting for him to show us offensively what he has done, because he just hasn't been able to take that step. And if he does, I would be rooting for him because I like Dante Exum and I like the Jazz. But I don't know if he's there yet or if he'll ever get there.
Okay, so moving on to the trade. Now, the trade I'm going to propose here is probably the biggest trade between, in terms of involving how many players it involves. But it's one that I gave a lot of thought to because I really do like the Utah Jazz, and I think there's a few players in the league who really fit the mold of this team very well. So this will be a trade between the Jazz and the Hornets, and I have the Jazz receiving Kemba Walker, Nicholas Batum, and Marvin Williams, and giving up Derek Favors, Ricky Rubio, Dante Exum, Alec Burke, as well as the Jazz 2019 first-round pick, which is top 12 protected, and a second-round pick in 2021 that belongs to the Wizards. Now, with this deal, I think we should preface it by saying that the Utah Jazz are in a very unique position in next year's offseason. They're probably in one of the best positions out of any team because they have all their good players signed long term in terms of all their key pieces, in terms of Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, and Joe Ingles, and Dante Exum as well. Now, I have Dante Exum being traded in this deal, so we'll pretend like he doesn't count. They have those three players, and then they have a lot of young players, like we just mentioned. Royce O'Neal, Raul Neto, their new rookie that they just picked up, Grayson Allen, Tony Bradley, and those four are all solid young players, and as well as the three players I mentioned before, and in addition to Jay Crowder as well. I'm sorry, I left out Jay Crowder. So those are four very good players. Now, in this deal, the Hornets would be receiving Derek Favors, who is signed for $17 million this year and has a fully non-guaranteed contract next year. So they could either decide to hold on to him, or they could let him go, or they could just let him go and re-sign him for less money, depending on whether he agrees to that or not. Now, Derek Favors, obviously, he's now in the behind the limelight behind Rudy Gobert. However, if given starter minutes, he could still be a very solid player. Unfortunately, he doesn't stretch the floor, but he is still a very solid defender, rebounds the ball well, scores in the inside very well, and still only 26, 27 years old. I believe he just turned 27. So there's still some potential left there. Same with Alec Burke, although not to that same degree. He's not that great of a player, and I don't think he ever will be, but he could still be a decent player coming off the bench. Again, I'm giving up Exum. I'm giving the Hornets Exum in this deal, based on the fact that they're hoping that he could develop into a better player. And Ricky Rubio is a nice starter as a point guard in the league. Unfortunately, he is about 29, 30 at this point, and his contract does expire next offseason. He would probably be a risk factor in terms of him leaving. But you are also getting a first-round pick, and you get to give up Nicholas Batum and Marvin Williams contracts. Both high contracts, although they are both still solid players. And I really would love their fits with the Utah Jazz. And, of course, you get Kemba Walker, who is an all-star and a really good, one of the best point guards in the league, at least compete with the top point guards in the league. I think he would fit in perfectly in Utah. And I think Nick Batum is another Joe Ingles. Goes out there, probably not as efficient of a scorer and shooter, but probably a little bit of a better defender. And Marvin Williams is a very solid 3-and-D player. I think those players would fit in almost seamlessly with Utah. And yes, acquiring these three players would essentially kill their cap space for next season. And obviously having to sign Kemba Walker as well would kill the cap space for next year. However, I think it's worth it for them to make this trade because of the fact that if they don't, I don't see Kemba Walker coming there willingly. However, I think if he is traded there and gets to play with those guys for a few months, I think he would absolutely fall in love with Utah. So what do you think of this deal?
Yeah, I gotta say I kind of hate this deal for the Jazz just because I don't want to mess with the core that they have in Jazz. I really liked what they did, and I know maybe it sounds kind of cliche to say this, but they really had team chemistry that I think by adding Kemba Walker, Nicholas Batum, and Marvin Williams, they would all go away, and this team wouldn't be as good.
I don't think these players are chemistry killers. That's where
Nicholas Batum hasn't done much last year. He averaged about 11 points. His game is kind of slipping. He's didn't play a full season. I just don't feel like these players would really make the team better. I think Ricky Rubio, Derek Favors were all part of that core group of players who just played well together, and I wouldn't want to mess with the chemistry, especially since you would be giving up all your cap flexibility if you took on the terrible deals of Nicholas Batum and Marvin Williams.
I mean, they're terrible, but these guys are solid players, and I'm trying to wonder who would be a good fit for Utah in terms of free agency next year. I mean, there's a lot of solid players out there, but who would also be willing to come? Now, if Kemba Walker does decide that he wants to go to Utah, that would be terrific for them. But I don't know. I think there'll just be better options for him than going to Utah.
Well, I think we can disagree here because I don't like this deal. And I like the chemistry. You're also giving up your draft picks, and Utah has shown that they're pretty good at picking drafts, at least as of late.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so the last team, Danny has them as the number one team. I'd probably argue that they're the second best team. They're the Denver Nuggets, who's actually the only team that didn't make the playoffs last year with a record of 46-36. And Vegas has them at this year at 47.5. I have them at about 48, 49 wins, so I would bet the over for Denver. They have a lot of talent. This team has a lot of young talent, especially with Nikola Jokic developing, Jamal Murray, Gary Harris. These guys are going into their 3rd and 4th years in the league, and they're just going to be better players along with Paul Millsap, and now the addition of Isaiah Thomas adds some veteran leadership to the team.
Yeah, I have them at 50 wins, which is 1 more than Utah, 3 more than Oklahoma City. I could see them being the breakout team this year. It's really going to depend on whether Paul Millsap stays healthy and is able to contribute on the defensive end and really play his game really to his advantage and really help out the Denver Nuggets as much as he did when he was with Atlanta. He is a little older, but he's the type of player who I don't think he's going to regress much as he gets older, just because of he never really relied on his athleticism as much as other players in the league have done. But yeah, I think it's really going to depend on him, and obviously Jamal Murray's development is going to be huge here. How much Gary Harris could step up on the defensive end is going to be huge. And I think, like you just mentioned, the bench. I mean, they have a pretty decent bench. They have Mason Plumlee, who could come off, play the 4 and the 5, Isaiah Thomas, Malik Beasley has to develop there. I think they have another one that they like that they picked up from Utah last year in a trade. I forgot what his name is, but
I know they have Will Barton, but he's going to be a starter.
No, Will Barton's going to be a starter. Yeah, they have Hernan Gomez, one of the Hernan Gomez brothers. Again, it's going. If these guys could get in there and give them a solid 50 or 20 minutes, this should really be the team that breaks out. But we will have to wait and see on that. And obviously, a lot is going to depend on Millsap here. Who do you have?
I will also say one more thing, that it also is going to depend on if Jokic can become a better defender, because he's obviously a fantastic offensive player, but if he's lost some weight and can contribute a little bit, at least become an average defensive center, then this team can really become better. Now, the other guy it really depends on is, and I'm just going to go the easy route. I know the GM survey come out and the GM believe that he's going to be the breakout star this year, and that's Jamal Murray. Now, Jamal Murray has shown that he's a fantastic shooter. He just is able to shoot the ball really well. He's able to get the shot off. Now, last year he averaged 37% from the three-point line, which, if I'm going to call him fantastic, you want to shoot over 40%, which is what we hope he is able to do. But I do believe that he's the second best, most talented player on this team, and has the potential to really come out, show his talent this year, and become an all-star.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a very terrific job, the Nuggets have, in terms of drafting these players and really developing them. Now, it's sad to think that they're the ones who could have had Donovan Mitchell as well. That really would have been a killer young team. Probably would have been the best young core in the league right now. But yeah, Jamal Murray, we'll see. We'll see if it continues to develop the way he has. I mean, I remember last year when Kyrie Irving was available, I read that the Denver Nuggets were refusing to give up Jamal Murray for Kyrie Irving, which really proves to you how big they are in him and how much they believe that he will develop. So I will not, again, another one I won't argue with you on here. There's really not much else there. I mean, like the few guys that I mentioned, you got, I believe his name is Juanito Hernan Gomez and Malik Beasley, but these are guys that aren't going to get a lot of minutes. And obviously you could argue that Jokic is going to break out, Gary Harris, but these guys have already, in a way, broken out, and maybe they could improve on their games that much more, but that's just highly unlikely because both of them are where they're at. And I mean, Nikola Jokic is already one of the best centers in the league, and Gary Harris is one of the better 3-and-D players in the league. So yeah, the trade I will be proposing for the Nuggets, and again, this is another team that's hard to think of a trade for just because of the fact that they don't have much depth outside of their starting lineup, and the starters they do have fit their roster very well. So it was a tough trade to propose, and again, I'm not sure if the other team involved in this deal would make this trade. However, I am going to propose it, and I think the one thing the Nuggets need is another star, another maybe not superstar, but another all-star. So I have them receiving Gordon Hayward for Gary Harris and Mason Plumlee. The reason for this deal, I mean, Boston might do it because, again, Gordon Hayward might get lost in the shuffle if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum really develop to the all-stars that they are looking like they will be. And he might get lost in the shuffle behind those two players and Kyrie Irving. Now, Gary Harris is a player who could really provide the team with better defense than Gordon Hayward can. Gordon Hayward is a better scorer, probably a better player. Not probably. For right now, he's a better player. But Gary Harris is a better defender, and he is 4 years younger, so he fits that timeline just a little more. That's not to say that Hayward's old. Hayward's only about 28. But Gary Harris fits that timeline just a little better. And they begin another player in Mason Plumlee who will never shine, but he'll go out there and do the little things that other players aren't willing to do. And again, Nuggets would be receiving an all-star in this deal in Gordon Hayward, another scorer. They'd be losing on another defensive player, which they don't even have a lot of. However, Hayward is a pretty solid defender, at least better probably than some of the other players on this Nuggets roster. And he is a legitimate scorer who would really help this team out on the offensive end even more than they already have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Celtics are looking to get rid of Gordon Hayward, and if you are, I mean, obviously in this deal, Gordon Hayward is the best player.